A man of 81 was crossing a dual carriageway on a green man, walking his bicycle on his way home. He was days away from his diamond wedding anniversary, 60 years married. The car that hit him went straight through a red light at speed and did not stop afterwards. And the detail that makes this case different from every other bad driving case I have ever looked at is not the speed and it is not the red light. It is what the driver was doing with his hands and with his mouth at the precise moment that he did it. He was inhaling nitrous oxide, laughing gas, out of a balloon while driving. Not once, and not before he set off, repeatedly, all along the route, caught on camera after camera, and again, seconds after he hit the man. I am going to show you the judge describing that moment herself, and I am not going to talk over the top of it, because she sets it out considerably better than I could, and you should hear it in the room rather than from me.
Along the A57 towards Toddick and Worksop. You were driving in excess of the speed limit, but it has been impossible to calculate your actual speed. It is not suggested you were racing, and the driver of the BMW was not driving as well as he or she might. It is a dual carriageway where there is a traffic light-controlled pedestrian crossing. Mr. Slynn, who was aged 81 years, was crossing the road entirely lawfully and in accordance with the green light for him. The lights were at red for you and you were
crossing entirely lawfully on his own green light, exactly as he was entitled to. Straight through the red at speed, hit him and simply drove on, and then captured on a nearby camera inhaling yet again within seconds of it. Quick word on who is talking to you. I am Oliver Bennett. I am not a police officer, I have never worked for a force, and I am not selling you a way out of anything. I am a criminal defense solicitor who reads the codes so you do not have to. This is a case breakdown rather than my usual sort of video, so a word about how it is made. The footage is from Sky News's court channel, filmed lawfully under the order that permits sentencing remarks to be broadcast, and it is used here for commentary and criticism. It is credited on screen every time it appears. And everything I say about the law is England and Wales. Scotland runs a separate system, with different offences and different sentencing, and none of the detail transfers across the border. Now, I do not usually cover cases like this, and I want to tell you why I am covering this one, because it is not for the sentence, and it is not for the horror of it. Almost everybody watching this channel drives, and there is something that has quietly become a criminal matter in this country in the last couple of years, which an enormous number of otherwise careful drivers still think of as completely harmless, because it turns up at festivals and it comes in a balloon: nitrous oxide. Since November 2023, it has been a controlled drug in this country. And what this hearing does, far better than any explainer I could sit here and write, is show you a Crown Court judge treating it as exactly that, as intoxication at the wheel, aggravating every other thing around it. So let me give you the facts as the judge set them out, one after another, because with this case the sequence of them matters a very great deal more than any single item in it does on its own. He was 20 years old. He had never passed a driving test and had never held a license, which means every mile he had ever driven was uninsured. He was already disqualified, and not for the first time. He was on bail, and he was in the middle of a suspended sentence. Every one of those four was already true before he got into the car that morning, and every one of them was known to a court. The car carried cloned number plates and had been kept under a tarpaulin at an address where he did not live, so that it could not be seen. That is not carelessness or bad luck. That is somebody who has thought carefully about being caught and has taken steps about it. Now listen to how the judge summarizes it, and pay attention to the last sentence of this, because I think it is the most chilling thing in the entire hearing.
4. In August 2024, you stole a car. It had cloned number plates when you had possession of it. 5. In April 2025, you killed an 81-year-old man who was crossing the road. You have wrecked the life of his family. You had been consuming nitrous oxide. You were driving far too fast. and you went straight through a red light. You did not stop. Such was your state of intoxication and utter disregard for road safety.
He had been consuming nitrous oxide. He was driving far too fast. He went straight through a red light. He did not stop. And such was his state of intoxication and his utter disregard for road safety that he did not appear to realize that he had hit a pedestrian at all. Right. So what does any of that actually mean for somebody sitting watching this who drives an ordinary car to an ordinary job and who is never going to do anything remotely like what you have just heard described? 3 things, and the first is the one people get wrong constantly. Nitrous oxide is a controlled drug, and driving while impaired by it is drug driving. It makes no difference at all that you did not buy it from a dealer, or that it came out of a balloon at a party, or that everybody around you was doing it too. The second is that impairment is not a number you can look up. With alcohol there is a limit, and you can measure yourself against it. With this there is only a question: were you impaired? And the answer comes from how you were driving, what the cameras saw, and what was found in the car. And the third is the one that turns a terrible day into a custodial sentence, and it applies to every driver alive. He did not stop. Failing to stop and failing to report after a collision is a separate criminal offence in its own right. So if you are ever in a collision, however frightened you are, however certain you are that it was not your fault, however much you want to be anywhere else, you stop. That is not advice about being a decent person. It is the single most consequential decision available to you in that minute. Everything on this channel comes down to a paragraph somebody can point at, and that is exactly what the handbook is. Make Them Pay is 40 pages of the powers, the code paragraphs and the words to use, written out with the references beside them, in type large enough to read on a phone at the roadside. It is norightsuk.gumroad.com/l/make_them_pay, the code on your screen now, and the link at the top of the description. Same material as this channel with the sources on it, so you can hand somebody a page instead of a memory of a video. Now, the part of a hearing like this that almost nobody watches to the end of, and it is the part that actually decided the number. The judge read out his previous convictions, not a summary of them, the list, court by court, date by date. Dangerous driving, driving while disqualified, no insurance, again and again. 5 separate sentencing occasions before this one, from a man who was 20 years old. And every single time, a court had tried something short of prison. A referral order, an extended referral order, a youth rehabilitation order, detention, a suspended sentence. Each one an attempt to keep a young man out of custody, and each one followed by the same offence all over again. The judge's own phrase for it was that the courts had tried to reform him repeatedly, and that it had lamentably failed. That is not a throwaway line in a sentencing exercise. It is a finding, which is why the judge reached a finding that changes the entire shape of a sentence, and it is worth hearing her arrive at it in her own words.
Control. But for the fact you are currently in custody, you would have remained so. You have a hardened determination to commit repeated serious crimes, often involving the dangerous use of motor cars. There is no sign of this stopping or reducing. It is getting worse. When the courts have tried to rehabilitate you, you disengage and commit other crimes. The conclusion of the probation officer is that you are a dangerous offender despite your young age. I have taken into account the mental health disadvantages from which you suffer and your learning disability.
Plain and obviously a dangerous offender. Not marginal, she says, and not borderline. And once a court makes that particular finding about somebody, it is no longer sentencing only the thing that they did. It has moved on to sentencing what it believes they are going to do next. That is a genuinely unusual thing for a court to do, and it is reserved for a small number of people. He is 20 years old, and he is one of them. Which produces something most people have never heard of, so let me explain it properly, because the headline number confuses absolutely everybody. He received 16 years and 6 months. but that is not 16 years in prison, and anybody telling you it is has not read it. An extended sentence comes in two parts, a custodial term and an extension period bolted onto the end of it. 11 years and 6 months of custody, 5 years of extension. And the extension is not time in a cell, it is time on licence after release, during which he can be recalled to prison for breaching a condition, without committing any new offence at all. So the number in the headline and the number of years in a cell are two entirely different figures, and the difference between them is the bit that is designed to protect everybody else. And then on top of all of that, a driving disqualification totalling 17 years and 8 months, and crucially, one that does not even begin to run until the day he walks out of the prison gate. Before she passed the sentence, the judge did something that I want to draw your attention to specifically, because it happens in every hearing of this kind, and it is the part that never ever travels beyond the courtroom. She spent a whole passage of it on the man who died, rather than on the man standing in the dock, which is a choice, and she did not have to make it. A retired builder who sang in his local church, who kept himself fit by cycling, who was careful about road safety, and who was days from 60 years of marriage.
He was also very astute about safety on the road whilst cycling. Mrs. Slynn, her son, daughter, and wider family have shown immense dignity in these proceedings. You have wrecked their lives. My heartfelt condolences are sent to them. Previous convictions. You have highly relevant previous convictions which have considerable importance when considering sentence in this case. I take into account
That passage is in every single one of these hearings, and it is almost never the bit anybody clips. I would rather it was. And if you are ever the person facing something at the roadside, or worse, there is help, and it does not cost you a penny. The duty solicitor is free at every police station in England and Wales, at any hour of the day or night, in person or on the telephone, and it is not means tested. If you are ever arrested after a collision, that is the call to make, before any interview and before you give any account of anything. Nobody is going to suggest it to you at the moment you most need it, and the people around you at that moment have no particular reason to. It has to come from you, and it costs nothing at all to ask. Let me put it together. 5 things, and it is the third one on that list that could apply to somebody watching this who has never taken anything in their life and never would, because stopping after a collision is a duty that lands on everybody who drives, however blameless. Every word here came off a hearing filmed in open court and published by Sky News, and the law came off the sentencing guidelines and the statute, not my summary of a news report, the judge, at length, in her own words. And the housekeeping, at the end where it belongs. I am a criminal defence solicitor, but I am not your solicitor, and nothing here is legal advice about your situation. This is England and Wales. The footage is not mine, and is used for commentary and criticism, credited on screen and in the description. If you know somebody who still thinks a balloon at a festival has nothing to do with the law, send them this one. Not for the sentence. For the line about a man who did not appear to realise he had hit somebody. I am Oliver Bennett. Read the code, not the room.